What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? It is I've Got Questions. I am your host, Jeremy Jager. At this point, you already know my name. If you don't know, I'm back. There's been a lot of things going on in the last week and a half. I guess it's the last episode. Sometimes it's hard to come back and really talk about a lot of these things because, there's people out there who try to diminish what's going on or try to desensitize us to things. We are very desensitized as people anyway. There's so many things in a news story, and how can you really blame us as people for? I wish that more people cared rather than dance on TikTok. But I understand why people are so distracted and get so distracted and are so distracted because there's so much going on. There's so much chaos and hate and murder in this world, and rights being taken away that, I think that it's hard to, I get why it's hard to think about it. I get why people say they aren't political, but when it affects your life, I don't see how you can just turn your back. Once, I always say this, once it gets to your doorstep, that's the only time a lot of people seem to really react. And that's a problem. I was at a party this weekend and, not a party, it was like literally sit down. They were barbecuing and I wasn't eating. Because I'm a vegan, and I understood I understood the assignment going in that I really wasn't gonna have much to eat, so I ate before, and that was a whole thing too. Like, I already have social anxiety, and I really came to this party not really knowing anyone but two people, and one of the people, I guess she was an older lady who was just very forceful with me about eating, or not even eating, but taking something home. And what she was trying to give me was like corn on the cob, salad, and beans. And to me, it's just like, I literally had that stuff at home, but it was kind of like they were trying to make it like, she was trying to make it like, I wasn't being, I don't know, respectful? She never said that, right? She actually apologized later on because I told her, I feel like I'm being attacked because it literally was going on for way too long. She was just like, just eat. And then some other lady who apparently, she's very iffy, like I was told, came and then she was like, it's not vegan enough for him. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? You came from the other room to say that? And it's just like, leave people be. I don't understand why me saying I didn't want to take your salad and your beans home was me not being vegan enough or it not being vegan enough. It was a very strange moment because literally, like I told you a moment ago, I have social anxiety. I really, really do. And many people don't know that. Sometimes I get looked at as this handsome, blah, 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 this and that, I'm tall, I'm big, and maybe people are interested in me, but that doesn't mean anything to me because, when people just want you for the outside, that doesn't mean anything to me, right? So I usually get kind of attacked in these kind of places because people think I'm too good when it's just like, I'm just here to hang out and be around people. I literally said, I didn't come here to eat. I came here to hang out and meet new people, but that wasn't enough to say it. I literally had to say things like that, and that still wasn't enough. It was very awkward for me. And people don't really get that unless you're a person who does, have social anxiety and other things in an anxiety period. But needless to say, I was there at this shindig. because I hate to call it a party because it was there was literally no dancing, and not that it had to be for it to be a party, but I wouldn't call it a party. I would call it a get together, a kickback. But so we were at this shindig, and literally on the news behind us, the TV was on. A bunch of the older people were watching the news, and there was another mass shooting, of course, which it seems to be every day. And I think I told y'all in the last episode I actually went to an active shooter drill, which wasn't really a drill. It was just like, telling people, pay attention. And I've been saying that forever. Excuse me. My headphones were, okay. This is correct now. My headphones kept slipping out, and I kept having to touch it, and I was being distracted a little bit. But, that drill, like I said, wasn't a drill. It was more like just an informational, because I still see people with headphones on in the stores and whatnot. And I really try to, obviously you want to live your life. Obviously you want to just be free, but we're not there right now. That's not where we are in America. We're in a dangerous time. There's a lot of things being swept under the rug. There's a lot of people, homegrown hate going on. And a lot of people turning a blind eye to it. This gunman that attacked on July 4th, which again, how do you live as an American? How do you live in a world where these people are known? This gunman, as the story came out, and I really wanted to come back earlier, but because last week I had said something about, the abortions were going on, and then literally the next day after my episode came out, there was a white congresswoman who stood up behind Donald Trump, and let me see if I can get that up while I speak about it, who stood behind Donald Trump at one of his Klan rallies. And, excuse me, I'm sorry. Legally, I shouldn't say that, right? It wasn't a Klan rally. It was a rally for America, for a better America or a new America or whatever the hell they were talking about. Who said, the win on abortion, which is insane to me. The win on abortion is a win for white life. Which was very eerie to me because I had literally said a day before that when my episode came out, I think it came out, I forget which day, but it came out, and then here was this woman saying about white life and what I was talking about a lot of these Republicans and people who feel as though, what is happening here? I apologize for that. Who feel as though there are not enough white people in America and that they are becoming the majority or minority, which is not even true. Not even close to true. It's really shameful what these people are being allowed to do. And it's really shameful that a lot of white people are acting as if there's no racism going on. I say, if you're going to be racist, just go ahead and be racist. Her name is apparently Congresswoman Miller. So let's take a listen to that.
Trump headlines a rally to support two Republican candidates ahead of Tuesday's primary. Comments made by one of them, Congresswoman Mary Miller, are drawing backlash. During last night's rally, Trump endorsed State Senator Darren Bailey in the sixth.
And I just want to say the backlash was literally like a day or two, not even at most two, not even a full 48 hours, which really bothered me. And in doing this podcast, it kind of lets me release a lot of my pent up issues with this country. Because these people are now very brazen in what they say and how they say it and who they play to and how they're awakening a lot of subconscious racist people who don't say nigger, right? Because apparently you can only be racist if you say nigger. A lot of these subconscious racists who have been asleep or been waiting for their great white hope to come. And here we are.
GOP race for governor. He told the crowd at the Adams County Fair.
And by the way, the name of the rally is Save America. And there's going to be a clip I'm going to play later on in the show with this old white dust tard, I'll say, who's saying that he doesn't know what happened to this country, which is very laughable to me because it's not their country. They stole this country with rape, with torture, with pillaging people, and now they're trying to make it seem as if they are being beat down. They are the victims, of course, always victiming or being victims, to something that they lay claim over. They control everything. They control the House. They control the government, but they're such victims, and they're saving America. And I really still bring up the white fragility of a lot of you out there who I don't understand how you complain or you say, stop complaining, reparations, blah, blah, blah. My father had to da, 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 da. Your people are in control. If you're suffering out there, and your people are in control, why don't y'all go after those people? Why don't you go after those Congress people, those governors, those mayors who aren't making it better for white life? White life has been beaten down by corporations, which is why I continue to say, if we weren't worried about racism, if we weren't worried about separating people, we'd be able to take these people down. Because really, it's us against them. They only militarize racism and things of that nature by doing things like this. And you guys are stupid because they don't care about you. Donald Trump doesn't care about white people. Donald Trump cares about green people, right? He's been in bed with the Russians, which are a very huge threat to America, for years. He's been in bed with China, as he says, for years. So he gets on a stage that says Save America, and he doesn't care about America. The most bankrupt president ever, or the only president who's ever been bankrupt.
Quincy Bailey will restore the state to greatness. Trump also reiterated his support for Miller, who is facing 5-term Congressman Rodney Davis in the newly redrawn 15th district. This is what Miller said about celebrating the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
President Trump, on behalf of all the MAGA patriots in America, I want to thank you for the historic...
You hear the language, the MAGA patriots. The language is clear. And as I look at this clip, I literally see 3 black people standing behind these people. Or is there 4? There's 4. 4 black people. And I really want you, as if you're a listener of this show and you have black friends, Spanish friends, who still say Trump, 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 you better be careful because they will turn on you in a second. If you can see and hear this clip and still be for Trump as a black, as a Spanish, and as an Asian person, you are a threat to any one of us.
Victory for white life in the Supreme Court yesterday.
There's Trump with his gooey face, his Play-Doh face, very happy, smiling. There's a moron, a black moron, standing in the back with Trump, Miller, Congress, whatever, the bull crap. I mean, how do you hear that as a black person and you really continue to cheer? There are black people out here who are not about Black Lives Matter. Those are the ones you watch for. Because we're in danger. We're being hunted down. We're in danger.
He misspoke. He says the Congresswoman intended to say the decision was a victory. Or spokesperson says she misspoke. He says
life in the Supreme Court yesterday.
By the way, I think they're going to try to clear this up. I almost said the bitch. Yeah. The bitch is reading. She's looking down and reading words. She never tried to go back as they're about to say she did or what she really meant. Because this is what they do. They say something, right? This is what we're talking about. We take this clip and that's what we run with. They post it all over those little message boards where all the little white fragility males and females are, on a dark web, ganging up together to take back America, save America. They never see that she then issued a statement that said she misspoke. They never ever see or hear that.
Miller's spokesperson says she misspoke. He says the congresswoman intended to say the decision was a victory for a right to life, not a victory for white life.
How do you misspoke that? How do you misspeak that? Excuse me. And then how do you not clean it up right away? Because immediately, if you weren't saying that, you would say, excuse me, anything. If I were to say Black Lives Matter and only Black life matters, right? You'd be paying attention and you'd be like, what the hell? He's a racist, blah, 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 blah. This didn't happen. This story was out there for at least a day and then it went away. Why I brought that up, because I mean, that's a whole abortion thing, but why I brought it up is because we had another shooting where these white champions are here. And I'm only talking about these white races who are ready to take back their country. I'm not talking about all white people. And if you're white and you listen to the show and you feel like I'm talking about all white people, then you're an idiot. I'm not going to sit here and defend myself because you know what the fuck I'm talking about. And if you try to just do something else with it, then you wanted to, because you won't face the fact that we have racists in this country trying to save it for white life.
At a July 4th parade in Highland Park, which is a suburb just north of Chicago, police telling us at least 6 people are confirmed dead. More than 24 have been taken to area hospitals. Right now, the gunman is still at large. They're looking for somebody to be between the ages of 18 to 20 years old, a white male, small build, wearing a blue t-shirt. They say they have recovered a rifle. And maybe most chilling of all, police saying that this person, this shooter, took up a sniper position above a roof, firing on the people at the parade. I want to get
now, if you listen to what I'm going to play another clip where they talk about how this guy was smart. Now, I do want to say that the guy was captured. I'm playing this clip from July 4th. This is the day that it happened. After there was a 7th person who died and there was 30 people who were injured. Excuse me. Let's keep going with this. I'm going to bring you all the way through.
I want to get right to Rahima Ellis. She's been following all the news out of Chicago for us. Rahima, what more can you tell us?
I think that what you just mentioned, Tom, is so important for people to know, that there was a thought early on that this shooter may have been on the ground with those who were participating in the parade. And what we just heard now is brand new information coming from police that this shooter was coming, the shots were fired from an elevated position. Mm-hmm. So this person had a chance to just shoot down into the crowd. The other information that was updated from what we learned earlier about the number of people who were injured, 6 people dead, he said 24 others were seriously injured. What he did not tell us yet, however, we do not know, is the ages of those who are dead.
All right, so I'm going to get into the next clip right away. So like I said, this is a person who was able to get on top of a roof, right, which is probably, if you are at war, if you are ready for battle or trying to get things together for battle, you do want to be on top of a roof. You do want to have all your corners. And like I said, I'm very much into the Second Amendment, which I guess was proved to not be what we think as the Second Amendment. But I'm very much into, the military kind of thing and whatnot. I'm into it for different reasons. I'm not into it to kill innocent people. You know, if anything, I'm into it to kill evil people. You know, who want to come and storm us, the good people. So there was a gunman back in a few years ago in Vegas. If you can go back and look at that if you want, who rented a hotel room above a concert in Vegas, and he killed, I believe, 70 people, something like that. I really don't know the number right now, but I just remember that he did the same exact thing. You know, when you're high above, it's very easy to target people. Many people, if you go and seen the clip of this Highland Park shooting, many of the people thought it was fireworks. Many people thought it was just, you know, the band being loud. You know, we really have to pay attention because these people are getting more and more dangerous. They're getting more and more tactical. And the one thing I'll say is that people knew about this guy, right? Again, we have a time where people knew about the person, and he still got to go and do what he always wanted. And by the way, he was arrested without being shot or killed like other people. Or we'll get into that.
Tonight, investigators revealing the terror and chaos caused by that mass shooting in a Chicago suburb was weeks in the making. The alleged gunman even devising an elaborate escape plan.
It was just chaos. Everybody was running.
The horror began shortly after 10 a.m. during Highland Park's 4th of July parade.
And when I ran back, there was the bodies on the ground. There was a little boy being carried away.
Authorities say the gunman disguised himself as a woman, climbing a fire escape ladder to the roof of a local business. He then took an AR-15 style rifle and fired down more than 70 rounds at innocent parade goers, including children. Listen to this video posted on social media. You can hear a pause as he apparently aims for different groups along the parade route. Police
And one of the stories that came out was that there's a 2-year-old boy now who's an orphan. How terrible. Both of his parents were killed that day. I'm telling you, good must fight evil. We are at a time where we must, and that was the thing about the party that I brought up, because I brought up to these people as we were sitting there, that everyone must learn how to use firearms in this country. This country is a very pro-gun country. So the good people, we need to start getting into firearms, just like the bad ones are. Because in times like this, we can't run and scream. We have to turn and fight. Because that's the only thing we can do at this point. These people are out of control. They know about these people. This guy was planning this for weeks. Okay? They have all these message boards and things that they know about. If you listen to the show, we've heard clips of that before. Where a gunman was planning it for weeks. They had them on the radar, and then someone just dropped the ball. Okay? All of the people who died, their families should be able to sue. If you knew about this for weeks, if you knew a person like this was out there buying guns, and you didn't take him down, you allowed it. You were complicit.
Police say 7 are now dead, at least 38 injured.
38.
Top. I can see flashes from the muzzle coming in our actual direction.
David Salick was watching the parade with his wife and 8-year-old son.
She said, "We're in the dead zone."
He was firing in your direction?
Yes.
Salick says he threw his son and wife behind a steel park bench to get them out of the line of fire.
Smart.
Just steps from him, 2 people were shot. Today, realizing just inches separated his family from life or death.
I don't want to think about that.
As survivors were left in shock, authorities were tracking down
Look at the state of the country. Mental health is not even being cared for. We're sending $1 billion to the Ukraine, and mental health is this? This is what this man has to think about? when he goes to put his daughter to sleep? That you didn't get killed by a gunman on July 4th. This is what he has to think about. And like he said, he can't even think about it. And he's a white man, you know, who's dealing with this. Like I said, not all white people are this. We have evil in this country, and it has to be rooted out.
The shooter. 8 hours later, they located a person of interest, identifying him as 21-year-old Robert Cremo III.
And you got to look up this guy. He looks. This guy is a weird looking guy. I mean, he's a weird looking guy. I mean, I don't try to be on somebody's looks, but holy shit. I mean, this is the one you see him in a store. I'm looking at him the entire time. He's a strange looking man. And then he dressed up in women's clothing to get through or get away. You know, this is what we're dealing with.
During the attack, Cremo was dressed in women's clothing.
And I do want to say, I saw this a clip of this officer, Chris Cavelli. I have a very large issue with these people giving him pretty much a star on the walk of Hollywood. You know, calling him Cremo. You know, I understand that's the man's last name. That's what, you know, his name is Cremo. But he's a suspect. He's a murderer. He's a suspect or he's a murderer. You can't call him a murderer because then you'll be tainting the jury pool when it goes to trial. So you call him a suspect. You don't call him by his last name like he's Madonna, like he's Beyonce. You don't do that. Now you've got a bunch of other ones who are going to be watching and listening to this. And look, this is what they call him, Cremo. First of all, it's kind of a cool name, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's a cool name. So now Cremo, you know, like he's a star of Grand Theft Auto, is the one we're looking at.
And investigators do believe he did this to conceal his facial tattoos and his identity and help him during the escape with the other people who were fleeing the chaos.
Police say he then walked to his mother's house and borrowed her car, driving to Wisconsin, then coming back to Illinois. A resident spotted him in that car and called 911. Police taking him down, the car towed to the police station today. A senior law enforcement official telling NBC News he purchased multiple weapons, including the high-powered rifle from the shooting, legally. He left that weapon at the scene. The ATF expedited a trace of it, connecting them to the suspect. The alleged shooter also appears to have a significant digital trail. NBC News has reviewed a YouTube page confirmed by law enforcement to be associated with Cremo. Performing as a rapper known as Awake, his recent music videos include tributes to mass murder.
Wow. How the hell, see, this is what I'm talking about. How the hell do you have this on YouTube? Right? Why is that on YouTube? Videos praising mass shootings? I mean, there are videos that get taken down that I put up that have, you know, just random songs in it and they go after. There's no way for YouTube to figure out that someone's highlighting mass shootings and being excited about it and posting about it and being a rapper that is celebrating mass shootings.
3 years ago, they responded to a threat at Cremo's home.
A family member reported that Cremo said he was going to kill everyone, and Cremo had a collection of knives. The police removed 16 knives, a dagger,
God
and a
damn.
sword from Cremo's home.
Those that grew up with him described
I mean,
him as
there's nothing.
outcast.
Look. You know, they're gonna attack people who collect things, and I mean, I don't believe in that. I mean, I have a collection of knives, but I don't want to kill people. You know what I mean? I like the way they look. You know, I don't think that we should focus on people who do things like put up videos on YouTube where they celebrate mass shootings. That's who we look for. That's who you look for. You don't look for people who just have a bunch of guns. These people are hiding in plain sight and sometimes in women's clothing, apparently. This is where we are.
Who was troubled?
He had been interested in rifles and weapons.
Nothing wrong with that.
Landberg went to school with the alleged shooter.
I could not see him doing that. I think that I have gone to school for 13 years with somebody that's capable of mass murder. It makes no sense to me.
And Lester, tonight authorities have announced charges against the alleged shooter, charging him with 7 counts of first-degree murder.
It's not enough. I don't think that they had the death penalty in Chicago. What is this about? Let's see.
The suspect here, Robert Cremo III, officially charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder. There will be more charges, according to the local state's attorney's office there, Eric Reinhardt, who you heard from. Likely attempted murder charges, etc. We should see the suspect now in court tomorrow morning. They're being asked that he's held without the possibility of bail.
And if he does get bail, I'm sure the NRA will be the ones to bail him out, allegedly. Here's a Fox News person linking the rise of mass murderers or mass shooters or active shooters with marijuana, which, again, now they're attacking marijuana. I smoke weed and I haven't smoked weed in about 2 weeks or so. I've never smoked weed and been like, I want to kill or I want to bang a hammer, or I want to trash things, ever. It's usually I want to sit down and eat something and watch something funny. I don't get what is really going on where people want to blame things and blame things and blame things instead of actually talking about what really is going on.
These are the eyes of some of the mass killers who've reportedly been regular pot users.
And they're all white.
Look at them. Those in politics and in the media who devote their time and energy to fear-mongering on fake issues while covering up the truth about the growing scourge of violent psychosis in our young people. They have to be called out, they have to be defeated, and then the public has to be educated. And parents, this means you need to get into the game. This means you understanding that this can happen to you, to your family, no matter how wealthy you are, how well-adjusted you are, how mature and together your children seem.
No, the one thing is, they always try to make it seem like black people are the ones smoking a lot of weed and going to jail for weed, which is true. We get arrested more for weed than any other group of people, even though the people who have the most amount of weed are usually white. But we're not going out and doing all these active shootings. We're not going out and making sure that America is terrified. These are people who plan these kind of things. Smoking weed has nothing to do with that at all. So close down all the white dispensaries that open up over the last few years. Close them all down. We'll see if that happens. It'll never happen. You'll never get rid of it. Now that it's legal in so many places. But there is no connection to psychosis and weed. Can we just go by science? That was a Fox News person who was trying to put more fear. You hear her say about people talking about fake issues. I don't understand. There should be laws against what you can spread on national TV for 24 hours a day. They're calling this shooter a calculated and smart person. I don't know about he's smart. He's definitely calculated.
So we want to bring you some more analysis on this case in Illinois so far. Dr. Larry Barton is joining us now. He's a threat consultant, a professor of public safety at the University of Central Florida, and he teaches at the FBI Academy. Thank you so much for joining us. So we are learning a lot more about the suspect in this case. We learned that part of the way that he was able to get away is that he dressed up as a woman as he made his way through the crowd. He just blended in with his victims, essentially. What does that tell you?
Well, first, about 7 of perpetrators of mass violence actually are very calculated. They prepare, they spend time, whether it's looking at the opportunity site, whether it's thinking about who the victims may be. So what it says to me in terms of dressing in women's clothing is that this was a very calculated, smart person. You know, you can be mentally ill and still be a person who is cognitive, who is smart, and who has pre-planned. And so what it really says to me is that this was not in any way something that was just on a whim, if you will. This was very pre-planned and quite conniving.
And the police also say the suspect left his gun behind after the shooting. He had to know that it was registered.
And he wanted to be caught.
Why would he do something like that?
He wanted to be caught.
Well, because again, he's smart. A devious for sure, and a criminal for sure. But the suspect, by leaving his weapon, was able to also divert time because the police then go and immediately seize that weapon and start to register it. Remember that this individual, the suspect, had purchased 4 weapons recently, and in 2019 had attempted suicide and had attempted to murder his family, and yet even after that was granted the license to purchase these weapons.
Wow.
It's a stunning.
I mean, if you are a victim of this shooting, and if any of your members were killed, he still was able to get a license after threatening to kill his family and almost killing himself. And posting videos online about being a fan of mass murders and mass shootings.
Funny example of a failure of a system in which people who have mental illness and or grievance and or just behavioral problems are still able. Can you imagine this? He had basically a modified AR-15. Even with that kind of background, was able to access those weapons legally.
And then ultimately, though, he did not go very far. They found him in Lake Forest, Illinois, which is just a few miles from where the shooting happened. Yeah, I thought for sure, especially as we sort of were getting closer to sundown, that he would be long gone and then would go even further once, you know, the dark of night would sort of hide his movements. Why do you suppose he didn't get very far?
Well, we're going to find out. I think the police will do a phenomenal job of obviously interviewing him. There were rumors at the time that he had driven as far as Madison, Wisconsin, but that is absolutely not confirmed at this time.
Okay.
But, you know, a person who is fearful that they will be captured, he obviously was trying to elude police, otherwise he wouldn't have left. If he wanted suicide by cop, that was probably just seconds away. So I think one of the reasons he probably stayed locally was he expected to be taken by police. It was just a matter of time.
Like I said, he wanted to be caught. I mean, these guys, they want, and that's why I have an issue with these guys calling him Cremo. You know, if I can't even not see some supremacists wearing a shirt that says Cremo on it now. And when you see that, what do? I think you call the cops. I think you call the FBI on them. I don't think at this point, anytime, any further, that we don't report these things, that we don't report these people. Because there's something in this country going on where these guys see other murderers and they're excited by it, they want to be a part of it, and they want to be a legend. That's the only thing that they can become. You know? He's a rapper who failed. A failing rapper. What else do you do? How do you become famous? Right? This is what they do. They're failing in life. The only way to become a star, like Kyle Rittenhouse, is to go get your rifles, come back and murder people. Oh, terrible. All on July 4th. I mean, I don't think the day matters anymore. I mean, I don't celebrate that anyway because my people weren't free during that. You know, I don't understand. I don't push anything on people. I can only say my opinion, but I don't push anything on people. And, you know, I definitely didn't celebrate. I was just, like I said, intermediate, not intermediate. I don't know the word I want to use, but the point is that, the days are long and the days are short now. And I don't know where we're going. More horrible news that happened over this last few weeks is the shooting of Jayland Walker, who was shot at 90 times by police officers and was hit 60 times. I have not really gotten into the story. I've only heard that little bit of it. But I want to read first some of the comments that are down here, and these people are atrocious. Okay, this is sad for everyone, and I'm going to start reading quotes here. This is sad for everyone involved or affected, but this young man made a choice. He knew what he was doing. He's been stopped for traffic violations before without incident. Okay, so that means he didn't feel threatened, in my opinion. Like I said, I still don't know about this story fully, and I'm going to watch this with you guys. Here's a person named Shane Ewing, or Ewing, E-W-I-N-G. Justice for Jayland. Justice has already been served, and that has 51 likes. Appalachian Patriot. Here's these patriots. He was not unarmed. Comply and don't die. Again, they only like it when it's black people. A lot of these white people do not like police officers. I keep saying that. Thank you to the brave police officers protecting the community from violent lawbreakers like this. Walker had a gun. Walker fired. From that moment on, any irrational move meant death. He wasn't rational. Not police fault. Walker had negligent parents. Dude was wearing a ski mask at night and running away, so they had no idea what race the man was. And even if they did, how was firing twice at cops and fleeing not at least a bit of justification for what happened? Sadly, the actions that led to this tragedy get no attention. All right, let me read this. Here's another quote before I get into it. This guy probably wanted to die by police suicide. His fiance was killed last month. He shot at the police to let them know he had a gun, but left it unloaded with his engagement ring in the seat. This guy is someone without a criminal record, by the way. I don't fault the cops, though. They were doing their jobs. They all knew this man had a gun, and they knew he shot it during the pursuit. I don't believe the man was trying to harm them, but the cops who were just doing their jobs and had no way of knowing that. Dakota Roden, always playing victims. I've been pulled over for many things and never tried to escape. It always got talked through like everything can be without escalating to this. Just Bob says, thank you, officers, for getting this violent criminal off the streets and protecting all law-abiding citizens. Now, I mean, there are people who are saying he doesn't have a criminal history, but apparently getting this criminal off the streets, these are all white people who are just in these comments. These leftists want change. This is Carlos, We know about the Spanish haters. Tell them to stop committing crimes. They always ignore the crimes they committed to get them into the situation in the first place. He was in a high-speed chase. He was a criminal. Thank you, officers, for keeping the streets safe. Okay, let's see. Now let's get to the story because we have to hear about what actually happened so I can understand.
The party is live in downtown Akron tonight, Clay.
Tracy and Rob, at this point, several streets in downtown Akron still blocked off at this point as we have seen protests throughout the day, including this one right over here, a mix between people and cars making their way through downtown. Again, we are hearing from a lot of people asking for change, asking for accountability in light of the death of 25-year-old Jayland Walker.
Their words echoing off the walls.
Now, why I read those comments to you is because most of the people here protesting are black. Like I said, I have not heard this story in full, and I will be getting to the police footage that was released. But I wanted to read those comments to show you the type of hatred that's really brewing in this country. It's a lot of hatred, and these white people love to say that we're just calling. Like some people said that we're just always playing victims, like Dakota Roden said.
Akron's institutions. Hundreds marched through downtown moments after police released officer-worn body camera video showing how 25-year-old Jayland Walker died at the end of a police pursuit Monday morning.
We need to stand up and stick together and stop letting everything happen. I've known him all my life.
Buttons adorned those who knew him best, like family friend Karen Ingram.
It's like deja vu, and every time you turn around, you're seeing it on TV, you're seeing it, but until it hits home, that's when it's so bad.
Outside the Justice Center and City Hall, local leaders outlined steps that should be taken now that the community has seen what can happen after a traffic violation and equipment violation.
They get to be a part of the change.
This father brought his family to witness what he hopes is more accountability.
When you look for answers with the video and you still don't see any answers, there's no explanation for anything.
Well, the aunt of Jayland Walker applauded the crowd for letting their words be what reverberated throughout the city.
I thank you for peaceful protest and just protest. We don't show credibility if we don't do it right.
We are still hearing there could be more protests coming after that video was released today. We will continue to keep...
All right, the next thing I want to do is get into the video, the actual body cam video. But just because Anchor is letting me know that the maximum recording time for segments is 60 minutes, keep an eye on the clock. I'm going to take a break and then immediately let this advertisement play, and then we're going to get back to the video. So give me a moment. All right, and we are back. I don't know how much of this video I'm going to really get through or play for you. But it is 18 minutes long, and I'm probably gonna skip through a little bit of it. Let's get into it. And this is the Akron police video of Jayland Walker's killing, murder. I don't know what to really say first, but I'm gonna check it out.
On Monday, June 27th, 2022, at 12:30 in the morning, Akron police officers attempted to stop a silver Buick on East Talmadge Avenue near Thayer Street. Officers informed dispatch that the reason for the stop was for a traffic violation as well as an equipment violation. The driver of the vehicle refused to stop, and officers initiated a vehicle pursuit as the vehicle was nearing the East Talmadge Avenue entrance ramp to Route 8 southbound. Approximately 40 seconds after the driver of the vehicle fled from the attempted stop, a sound consistent with a gunshot can be heard on the body-worn cameras of the officers. Officers notified dispatch that a shot came out of the suspect's car door.
Getting on to 8 South from Talmadge, reason for the stop was traffic and violation. 21 shots fired. That vehicle just had a shot come out of its door.
At the time of the sound, a flash of light can be seen along the driver's side of the suspect vehicle.
Which we don't see. Okay, here was the video of it. Okay. You see a shot. I love, the thing is about this video, how long did it take for, first of all, it's very astonishing to me when some of these videos come out. We have waited, I should say, for police videos to come out of like Breonna Taylor, many others who were disarmed, who weren't in the wrong. But a video like this came out days after the shooting or after what happened. And I just want to say about the ski mask thing, which I've talked about on another platform. We are still in COVID. We are still allowed to wear masks. We are allowed to wear those kind of things. Do not criminalize someone wearing a mask. Do not. Unless they are committing a crime, they could wear a ski mask, they could wear a pig mask, they could wear whatever the hell they want on their face. Even if it was a COVID, those things are allowed. Those things are allowed to be bought. There is not a time on the package that says where you can and can't wear this mask. So leave people alone on that shit. Because if you get on that train, anyone in your family who dies because they're wearing a mask, any one of your friends who dies because they're wearing a mask, you are complicit.
For several minutes, and the suspect vehicle exited onto the Archwood Avenue ramp. The pursuit proceeded through several city streets until he neared the intersection of East Wilbeth Road and Claremont Street. At that point, the driver slowed down and exited through the passenger side door of the moving vehicle wearing a ski mask. The suspect fled from the vehicle on foot, turning and facing officers momentarily. He continued to run, evading arrest. Officers attempted to safely take the suspect into custody by deploying their tasers. The deployment of tasers was unsuccessful, and the suspect continued to flee on foot. As the foot chase reached the nearby parking lot, the suspect stopped and quickly turned towards the pursuing officers.
And this is just photos at this point. They're not showing us the actual video. They're trying to prove that he was a threat, but if you were shooting at him with tasers, I don't see how it escalated to then shooting at him 90 times and hitting him 60. So it seems like he didn't have a gun when he got out the car. Right? So like I said, I wanted to hear what some of these racist people were saying in the comments, because I know they were going to be racist, telling people don't comply and don't die. Or that he may have wanted to die by suicide, by a cop. So I'm trying to figure out where he was a threat. Or where, not that he wasn't a threat. I'm trying to figure out where you had to shoot him 60 times.
Charging their firearms, striking the suspect. Under visual inspection of the suspect's vehicle, a handgun, a loaded magazine for a handgun, and what appears to be a gold wedding ring were observed in plain view on the driver's seat.
Okay.
Body-worn cameras do not provide a 360-degree or
You're slowing down.
Now, this is when he's jumping out. So now they're showing the video. All right, so he gets out. He's running now. Jesus Christ. You know what? The thing is, oh my God, this guy's on the floor right now. I want you to see this video. This guy's on the floor right now, and on that body camera that they decided to cut away from just now, there's an officer reloading a clip. Now, from what I see, there are about 5 officers who are running after him and now shooting. All the pop, pop, pop is what you hear is about 5 officers shooting. How many guns, how many magazines, how many bullets would it take to take out one person? It really only could take one bullet, right? So they're trying to justify with this video. Actually, there's about 8 to 9 officers shooting at him. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead at that point. So I guess that would be the 90 almost. If there's 90 officers, or excuse me, 9 officers shooting, there's more than 9. There's more than 9 officers at this point chasing him. Jesus Christ. Lord. I mean, there are no words. There are no words for that. I see everything. I see all sides of this, right? I do. I really do. He shot a gun from the car, but when he got out, he did not shoot. That's my thing. I'm not trying to justify what he did. I'm not trying to justify that he ran. But when he got out that car, he never pointed a gun. I can only imagine what he was thinking. Maybe he did want to die. They're saying that his fiance had died a month earlier. I don't know that for a fact. I do not know that. There's no news of that. Nothing I played said that. They did find a ring. I think that the only thing you could really say is it's an excessive use of force, which they would never go to jail for. They would never be terminated for. I don't think that anyone should be shot at that many times. I just don't. They're going to get away with this. They're going to get away with what happened here. There's nothing really I could really say more about this. He did put himself in a position to be fired upon, but I keep talking about, and I've said several times, why aren't these guys able to shoot at the leg and take someone down? It's easy to do. He was running away from you. Could have shot him in the leg. Could have did something. But instead, every officer who was on scene opened fire. I mean, if you want to talk about Crimeo, as they like to call him, the new Madonna, he was not taken into custody dead. He was alive with his makeup on, with his female's clothing on. Unfortunately, Jayland Walker and his family will never have peace over this. This is not like Sean Bell, who was killed by police many years ago, who I've talked about on his wedding night. He was unarmed. He wasn't doing what this guy was doing. There were 50 rounds shot at Sean Bell. There's nothing really more to say. I mean, it's a horrible thing that happened, and I just hope that we can go somewhere where deadly force is not the number one answer all the time, and that the people on the alleged right don't cheer this kind of stuff on, because it's not. You shouldn't be cheering murder on. Many of those people, they claim to be religious, and I just don't know how you can be excited that someone who didn't hurt anybody was killed. You know, senselessly. I don't get it. I do want to talk about something else now at this point because there's nothing else to really talk about. Let me see what they're saying here. Family attorney of Jayland Walker on the next steps of police shooting case.
For the family of Jayland Walker, I should say, Bobby DiCello joins me live now for more on this. Bobby, thank you for being here. We saw you there with Jayland's sister. First off, how is the family coping right now?
Thank you for that question, Beth. Mom is just now getting to a point where she doesn't, wash her hands and fall to her knees and scream cry through her day. His sister is, as you saw in the video, very tearful, but is trying to support her mother as much as she can. Their home is a humble space where mostly now the lights are low and they watch TV and they're trying to kind of grapple with what's happened. Something to them that is absolutely incomprehensible, and they're in a lot of pain.
Now, Jayland's family describes a peaceful person. We heard his sister say he had no criminal record, but the police are saying he fired a shot out of the car and that he may have been unarmed. He led police on this chase, and they did, despite him being unarmed, they're saying they did find a gun in the car. So what's your response to all of that?
My response to all of that is Mr. Cremo. Mr. Cremo, as your earlier taping just showed today,
speak about it, boy.
Killed 6 people.
And this is what I was just talking about just a second ago.
In a mass shooting, and was surrounded by his car after he fled with officers who brought him to the ground and arrested him. My client fled on foot and was shot at over 90 times and hit over 60 times. Now, I have to remind everyone that my comments are not made because I want to divide us. We are all Americans. And as Americans, we have to remember that Jayland was our neighbor, our brother, our cousin, our nephew, the kid who worked for DoorDash, he worked for Amazon. He was not a criminal. He was not a thug. He was not someone who deserved any of what happened to him. Was he in some state of unusual behavior? Of course he was. He wasn't behaving like his family had ever seen him behave before. He had never committed a crime before. And it is absolutely outrageous that people are going to look to some alleged flash taken from a camera off a freeway and look at some notion that this reason is reason enough to shoot at him over 90 times. I mean, that's just not fair.
You mentioned that you're suspicious of the gun placement in the photo that police released. Are you saying you don't think this was Jayland's gun? Do you have any reason to believe that?
Well, here's what I know. I know the preliminary autopsy report specifies that the gun is found in the backseat. The picture that you're showing right now is a picture of the gun on the front seat. Now, Jayland leaves the side door of his vehicle. As he's leaving the side door of the passenger side, of his vehicle, as he's leaving the passenger side, if the gun is in the back seat, and as he is leaving the side, he would have had to position all of these items. He would have had to reach into the back seat, position them, and make it look just like we see there. And so it raises many questions.
So, Bobby,
and one thing I'll say to that, and these police are very dangerous, and we try to really make police seem innocent. We've heard about ghost guns. I've been told about police having ghost guns. I mean, there's plenty of stories you can hear about where there's a new show actually on HBO that just came out. I forget the name right now. I think it's about Baltimore, and it's a true story about how this cop called another cop to bring him a gun, and placed it on the scene. What this lawyer is saying is not something that's unfounded. What this lawyer is saying is not something that does not happen. But here we are.
Bobby, what are the next steps for you in this case?
Well, the next step is the funeral. And then after the funeral is going to be the release of the autopsy report. And then there will be a conversation about what it contains, and there will be an evaluation and investigation of that.
I mean, the one thing that they'll have to really show is if he had, I guess, I don't know how they're going to prove that or not. You know, if the gunpowder that he allegedly fired the gun, you know, outside the window or whatever. It's such a weird thing that happened. If you see it, it's like there's a flash, and then, you know, even that, like I said, that video that they put out, it's not a video to be put out to show exactly what happened. It's a video that they put out to defend the police, and I think that's the most dangerous thing. I really believe that you work together to make sure it seems like the police did nothing wrong. And again, no one should be shot at 60 times. No one should be shot at 90 times, over 90 times. What they did was practice shooting. What they did was go to the range. You know, there's a story about police officers, and this is a recent story, who, I forget what state, but were at the range. They actually, at the police private range, they had black men as the targets. You know, and I go to the range. All the targets I see are green people, or, you know, just a figure, or aliens, or Bugs Bunny, whatever you want to put. But at this one, it was black men. I'm a black man. No one cares about what I feel about that. And it's very strange to me that you think that I should hear this as a black male and not call it racist, and not call it, you know, something that leads to more black men being killed. They're not on our side. And if you're white and you want to date black men, you want to date black women, you need to step up. You want to be a part of our culture, you need to step up. You want to dance like us, you need to step up. You want to rap like us, you need to step up. Because without us, without black people in this world, you wouldn't have the things you have. You wouldn't have your macaroni and cheese that you go to Chick-fil-A to get. Because we are the ones who created that. You wouldn't have the dance moves. You wouldn't have the way people sing, like how Adele sings. You wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have some of the science or inventions, peanut butter, that was created by black people. Bourbon. You wouldn't have all those things. And I'm looking at this man on my screen. And like he said, he was somebody's brother. He was someone's neighbor. He did DoorDash. He delivered food to people probably that day. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Another terrible story that I don't think a lot of people know about or have heard about. Random story. Before I get into the next thing, you know, I'm just really, why I'm even covering this is just to point out how there are people out in this country who are practicing evil at an all-time high. 31 bodies were found at an Indiana funeral home. And then last week, I think there were 40 bodies that were inside of a truck. There were migrant workers who were coming from Mexico, I believe, and over 40 to 50 people were found dead in the back of a truck, which I'm not going to cover that. It's a horrible story. You know, I feel like Joe Biden does have that on his head too. You know, whether you want to say, you know, he should close the borders or not, we have to figure out a way to bring those people into this country that helps this country. And I think I've talked about it, you know, that helps the infrastructure of this country. But I'm not going to get into that. I think I've talked about that already. You can go back and hear that. But this story is just absolutely strange.
Ville Police's Major Isaac Parker told us that some of the bodies they found had been there since March. And he said the bodies were found throughout the funeral home.
If you walked inside the business itself, you would understand this is abnormal for any funeral home I've been to.
Several agencies worked Friday night into Saturday morning after getting a tip about an odor emitting from the Langford Funeral Home and Family Center.
When we arrived at the scene, of course, our officers did smell a strong odor. It was consistent with decomposing bodies.
Major Isaac Parker says some of the 31 bodies found were in advanced stages of decomposition, and that 16 cremated remains were also found. The Clark County Coroner's Office did take custody of all the remains found, using a large refrigerated trailer.
The coroner's office is working diligently at confirming the identity, making contact with the family so that they can receive closure.
I'm praying that it's not my son. Candy Rogers' son Dominic died December 11th. His service was held at Langford. Rogers claims her son wasn't cremated for 6 to 7 weeks after his service. The funeral home providing a number of excuses.
He couldn't get in touch with the coroner. He couldn't get signed off on some bodies that were there. He had a lot of COVID patients, and my son would have to wait.
Rogers did say she was eventually given ashes, but she questions their authenticity.
Right.
She says she can't confirm it, but feels her son may be one of the bodies that was found.
We trust these people in the hardest time of our lives, at least for me. And to go and do that to somebody, I would never do that to somebody in life. And for them to take advantage of people, and especially to treat your loved ones the way that they did, it's not right.
As of now, Major Parker says no one has been charged with a crime. He did add they have spoken with the funeral home owner, and Jeffersonville Police, as well as other entities, are continuing to investigate.
The big picture is to make sure that if there is a victim of any sort of criminal act, that they do receive justice and that they get closure.
Police do ask that if you have entrusted a family member to the Langford Funeral Home recently, to reach out to the department and to the Clark County Coroner's Office. In Jeffersonville, Dakota Sherrick, WDRB News.
I mean, I heard nothing about the people who own the funeral home being arrested or nothing. I heard that's what I had played a little bit of this clip before, and that's why I wanted to really play it to hear if they were arrested. Nothing. I guess there's no law or anything, you know, and this is why when it's my time, just put me in a bag, a decomposing bag that goes back into the ground and let me, you know, just go ahead. That's sick. It's sick. 31 bodies. Who knows how long this was going on? You know, like this lady was saying, she doesn't even know if that's really her son in that urn. It's just horrible. So many horrible things going on, and really no relief, no mental health relief. What does that mom do? I mean, you're thinking that your son's in an urn, and then you hear that this happened, and you know that it took 6 to 8 weeks to get your son's remains, and the next story I want to get into is R.Kelly, who was sentenced to 30 years in prison. I think he actually sued the prison for saying they said that he was a suicide risk, and then he was released off their watch of suicide, but he sued and won because they had put out that he was a suicide risk. And I want to talk about this because we're going to talk about a few things with this, and but we're going to start with R.Kelly.
To 30 years in prison for his role in a decades-long underage sex trafficking ring. NBC News reporter Daniel Arkin is tracking this story for us. He joins us now. So Daniel, talk to us about this sentence that just came down and what led us up to this point.
Good afternoon, Aaron. That's right. 30 years behind bars for R.Kelly. This is the culmination of one of the most spectacular downfalls in all of modern celebrity. R.Kelly was one of the most popular and successful hip-hop artists of the 1990s and 2000s, produced a string of hits, but he was always trailed by very troubling accusations of sexual abuse. In 2019, the documentary series Surviving R.Kelly renewed the scrutiny on his past behavior, and last year he was finally put on trial. At the center of that case, extremely disturbing allegations that he essentially led a criminal enterprise to groom young women and boys, abuse them. Women who testified described him as a relentless abuser, holding them captive, subjecting them to horrific behavior. He was convicted last September on all of the counts in that case. His sentencing had been delayed a few times, so today, this is the big moment. This, in the eyes of his accusers and all of his critics.
And I talked about this already on the show. There was not just women or young girls, there were young boys who R. Kelly has sexually assaulted, sexually molested, and were involving them in this sex trafficking.
Is justice. He will spend presumably the next 30 years behind bars.
You mentioned those accusers, Daniel. It was an emotional day in court, I understand. What have we heard from Kelly's victims today?
A number of his victims testified in court, including a few who were identified there as Jane Does. This was incredibly difficult to hear and read. They described how R. Kelly's abuse essentially ripped them of all of their agency and self-worth.
Right.
One woman described how she wanted to die,
right,
being essentially his prisoner. They described feeling humiliated and debased. He, according to these women, had absolutely no remorse about what he was doing to them over the years. And so it was important to hear again from the women and I should say the accusers at the heart of this case.
Right, because it's not just women. Sex trafficking is a real problem in this country. And that's why I wanted to cover this story, because there's another story I really wanted to just go into. And like I said, we talk about women being sex trafficked, but young boys are really being sex trafficked as well. But I want to get into this story about these Texas parents who their daughter vanished while at an NBA game.
15-year-old's terrifying ordeal, police say, at the hands of human traffickers. Her parents sharing their story, hoping to help and warn others on how easy it is to become a victim in an exclusive interview with ESPN's Outside the Lines.
It was a big game, but we're playing the Trailblazers. Our daughter, she loves going to the games.
It was supposed to be a fun daddy-daughter night. Kyle Morris taking his 15-year-old daughter to American Airlines Arena to watch a basketball game back in April. But after she didn't come back from the restroom around halftime, he started to worry and contacted security.
Oh,
An
man.
off-duty
How
officer
terrible.
walked up, and she told me that they had video of our daughter walking into the Lexus parking garage with a guy, and they said, you need to go home and you need to file a report.
Dallas police declined an interview request but referred to a Texas statute that says missing juveniles are runaways unless circumstances suggest they were abducted. Police saying a runaway report should be filed in the town where the juvenile lives. So Kyle Morris drove 30 miles home alone to...
Oh, my God. I think I said on this show that I'm an empath, and a lot of these stories really, that's why I tell you it's hard sometimes to talk about these things. I could run a show where I talk about the Real Housewives, that's one of my guilty pleasures, or I could, talk about music, but these things are terrible, and I feel like they need more light. And to make someone get in their car and drive 30 miles back home to where he knew he went there with his daughter. He knew something was wrong. And all we have are, they're getting rid of abortion rights. There was a 10-year-old girl who was raped by a family member who tried to get an abortion, and now she can't. That's another news story going around. They just act as if these young women, or young girls, because they're not women, they're not men, just want to go and run away. And it's almost as if they're saying, like, hey, we don't know if she went to go be with someone. We don't know if he went to go be with someone. I'm telling you, my child is gone. And you tell me to go home and wait. You tell me to go home 30 miles away from where my child was and wait.
To make the report. 6 days later, his daughter was still missing, and the family reached out to the Texas Counter-Trafficking Initiative.
He said to me, send me a couple of pictures of her.
He was able to reach out to us
6
and go,
days later.
An investigator for the initiative found an online ad for sex with the Morris's daughter.
When I saw those
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I didn't recognize my daughter.
The Morris's daughter was traced to a hotel in Oklahoma City.
Within 4 hours, maybe, Oklahoma City police put together a sting operation.
Arrests were made, but police did not find the Morris's daughter. However, 3 days later, an anonymous tip led police to her. The Morris's daughter was taken to a local hospital. 10 days after last seeing her, Kyle and Brooke Morris were finally reunited with their 15-year-old.
As soon as I walked in the room, I was trying to be strong for her.
I was just able to just be her mom in that moment, and that was kind of refreshing.
I never would have thought something like this would happen. We just want to make sure people understand, one, that something like this can happen to anyone, anywhere. Even if you don't think it's possible, there's people out there that they want to make it happen.
Right.
Just truly frightening. Police made 5 arrests directly related to this case, and it remains under investigation. Authorities are still trying to identify the man seen in the security video walking out with the Morris's daughter from the arena. And a spokesperson
Why haven't I seen the photo?
Center and Dallas Maverick says they are glad the teen is now safe and wish her well on her road to recovery, and added, the American Airlines Center has no evidence that any trafficking group has been in the arena at any time, including with respect.
How do you release a statement like that when the girl was at your arena and then she was trafficked? You have no evidence? What the fuck else do you need? Is that not evidence of trafficking or a trafficking group or a person? This is again where they're blaming the victim. The American Airlines Center has no evidence that any trafficking group has been in the arena at any time, including with respect to this incident. With respect? Bitch. I hope that father, the only reason why I keep saying for people to sue people is because that's the only way this shit will stop, is when money comes out of it. Because that's the only time things change, is when money comes out of it. With respect to this incident. Whoa.
Back to this incident.
Really, a lot.
I mean, there was a story talking about how some of these hotels, let me see if I can pull that up. need to be doing more. I hope this is the one. Yeah, okay, this is the one I came up. It's 11 minutes long. I'm not going to play the whole entire thing.
It's become a hub for illicit activities.
Sexual assault and stop human.
Okay, so the title of this, if you go back and go on YouTube and look at this, it's published on April 2nd, 2022. Human trafficking generates about 100. Oh, Lord. I'm not laughing, trust me. I'm just exasperated. Human trafficking generates about $150 billion a year globally in illegal profits. Hotels and motels are a common venue for sex trafficking due to ease of access for buyers, ability to pay in cash and maintain secrecy through finances, and lack of facility maintenance. What are the major hotel chains doing to curb human trafficking on their properties? I'd say nothing.
Human trafficking is big business. It generates about $150 billion a year globally in illegal profits. Traffickers exploit a number of companies to carry out their deeds, banks to launder money, planes to transport victims, and social media platforms to lure prospects. But there's one major sector where traffickers tend to hide in plain sight: hotels.
We know that sex trafficking takes place in hotels and hotel rooms. We also know that individuals working at hotels can be in situations of forced labor, and labor trafficking can take place at any point in a hotel supply chain.
Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. In the U.S., there were more than 10,000 reported cases of human trafficking in 2020, and 72% were related to sex trafficking. Large events like the Super Bowl are thought to bring a spike in sex trafficking due to a high influx of visitors. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated this issue. Criminals are able to abuse new hotel technology like contactless check-in, making it more difficult to spot signs of trafficking. All the while, waves of sex trafficking lawsuits continue to pile up against hotel chains.
I mean, like I said, I'm not going to play the whole entire clip because it's pretty long and we've already talked about it for a while. So that clip is called "Why Hotels Like Marriott Have a Human Trafficking Problem," and I do implore you to go and watch it. And if you pull up that clip, there's a whole bunch of videos on the side. The children groomed in Romania for UK sex trade. Inside the alleged sexual assault cover-up in Charlotte. There's so many videos to really go ahead and look at. Chilling new look at sex trafficking from 7 years ago. Nothing's changed, and a lot of it, I feel like politicians are involved. What are we gonna do? You see a place like American Airlines Arena saying there's no evidence that this happens here. How? Every time that they want to play a story down, they just dismiss it. And we have evidence. I do want to get into, because, what they talked about in the last moment or so, or minute or so, was about how when like the Super Bowl comes around and these major sports events come around, how there's a spike in children going missing. A lot of them are Black, Hispanic children, and it's not getting better. So I do want to talk, and I keep saying about men because they don't, or young boys, they don't really report that men and young boys go missing a lot. And I think that we need to start paying attention because young boys don't just, people do run away, but the disparities in media coverage of missing Black men is really, it's irrehensible.
We continue our coverage of missing Black people. Today we're going to focus on Black men. The cases of Daniel Robinson and Jelani Day got little to no media coverage. If you don't recognize who they are, that's why. Jelani Day's body was
found 11 days after he was reported missing, but Daniel Robinson is still missing. He was last seen at...
And I talked about Jelani Day on this show. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little flustered by that. Because Jelani Day, and that, if you go back to that episode, I forget which episode it was, but that story really broke me down. Because he was found weeks later with no jaw. He was found weeks later missing many of the fundamental parts that make your body go every day.
Buckeye, Arizona, back on June 23rd, their cases represent the cases of 524 black boys and men missing in America. If the media coverage and police involvement was greater, would the numbers be less? Josh Parker is a journalist with the Amsterdam News. He has covered both of these cases. He joins us now from New York. And Josh, thanks for being with us. You know, we often hear about the missing white women syndrome, and all we have to do is mention the words Gabby Petito.
Mm-hmm.
But is the media coverage for black men just as missing as it is for black women?
You know, the coverage isn't the same. You know, I'll just use an example. If I were to go missing, if my coworkers or my family members didn't hear from me, they would go to the police and there would be a knock on my door. Might be a short search for me, but that's pretty much as far as it would go. In the case, for example, of Daniel Robinson in Arizona, you know, the police told us they canceled a helicopter search to look for him, and they told his father that he is, quote, a grown man and he has the right to leave when he wants. Now, obviously, that same treatment was not given to Gabby Petito, and we just have to get that equal treatment when it comes to our black men and boys missing. Just want to give you some numbers. You know, since I did that story, you mentioned the number 525 or 24, and now it's about maybe 530, and we have 45 missing black men and boys alone here in New York State and in New Jersey as well. So it's a very widespread problem. It doesn't get enough media coverage when it comes to our black men.
Josh, we had that flurry of activity.
And again, I apologize that this clip is so low. I'm not sure why it's so low. But it's something we talk about, and it goes away. You know, the news cycles are just horrendous. You know, there's 24 hours of news always cycling through. It's hard to keep focus on these things, but yeah, there's a huge disparity of when black men and black boys go missing. A story that's circling the social media, you know, is about, and I just want to, I'll connect the dots here, right? Is how, I told you I'm a Real Housewife, not fanatic, but like, it's my guilty pleasure. There was Erica Jane who cursed out Garcelle Bouvier's 14-year-old child. And a lot of people are really reacting because, you know, the way she cursed him out, and he was doing nothing wrong. He was going to pick up flowers from a table. And she repeatedly said, "Get the fuck out of here, get the fuck out of here." And it's just the treatment that black boys, you know, how we're treated around this country is just really, or black boys, how they're treated around this country. Because I was, you know, obviously a black boy at one point, and, you know, but I was always tall and I was always bigger. And I feel like when we're seen like that, we're seen as adults and we're seen as, you know, able to take care of ourselves. And like even one time I was approached by someone in a van, like a work van, and I was very young. And I don't think that he thought I was young, this person. You know, I think he thought I was older, but then when he started talking to me, he could see that I was young. I was about 16, 17, I remember this story. And he was in a work van, you know, just coming up to me and trying to get me to go in the car and just like hang out. And you got to think about how many times does this happen, especially in a rural town or, or a big city where you don't have anything to do and you get in that car and you go missing. I mean, it's just a terrible thought, and I think you really need to start treating our young black boys as boys. Stop telling them that they're, they will become kings. They are young kings and whatnot. But we need to stop trying to pretend as if they are invincible, because they aren't. We're human beings. We're not invincible. And I want to get into this other clip about this 100-year-old U.S. veteran, how he breaks down in tears at what America has become.
This is Webflow Interactions.
Excuse me. Ads, right? Not the ads that pay me. Or I don't get paid yet for ads, but I hope so one day. And to me, it's just laughable to say, something about what America has become or not.
I've lived a good life. I've had a lot of happiness, smiling, telling everybody that everything was beautiful every day. If I went into my church and didn't say everything was beautiful, they'd think I was sick. And I'm not that way. I mean, I sincerely believe in this old world that everything is beautiful. I mean, if I wake up in the morning and see these plants out here and all those flowers that are in there and the green grass on the ground, that's beautiful.
Right.
And people don't realize what they have. They bitch about it. And then nowadays, I am so upset that the things we did and the things we fought for and the boys that died for it, it's all gone down the drain. Our country's gone to hell in a handbasket. We haven't got the country we had when I was raised. Not at all. Nobody will have the fun I had. Nobody will have the opportunity I had. It's just not the same. That's not what I want. That's not what they died for. It's just not it. I'm so sorry. I'll be all right. It's not the same.
There's a lot to unpack there. But, I mean, this country was never a country for all people. We know that, Is it? I don't even know if you can say this is not what the country used to be. This country was founded with hate, rape, pillage, and murder. So he's only talking about, his people. And, he is a white veteran. A lot of black veterans from that time, they came back home and were treated like garbage. There's probably there's not 2 Americas, there's 7 Americas at this point, right? Because if I play this next clip, which talks about how the hatred was real, 1957 footage surfaces of how black men were treated, catching hell, even in a nice 3-piece suit. There's no audio. Well, there is audio, but it's just music. But you see a man, I'm going to describe this for you. Here's a man in a 3-piece suit with a hat on, being harassed, kicked now by a bunch of white men. Pushed again, ran down. When that man's sitting there crying about what America was, is he thinking about this? Does he even know? Well, does he care? Did he cry for that? You know, our young black boys, like I just was talking about, and why I wanted to play that clip about what this country was and it's not the way it used to be. It's really just a dangerous place for anyone who isn't white. And unfortunately, there are white people who get caught in the crosshairs. But if you talk about like the Buffalo shooting where a guy traveled over 200 miles to go kill black people, this country, that was going on. They were bombing, towns filled with black people for the last 100 years, sir. There's a clip of a young boy who, let me see if I can get this up here, who was held down by an off-duty cop. Try to hurry up and do this. I don't like to give y'all any kind of dead air. Here it is. A Chicago PD officer pins 14-year-old boy to the ground with knee, claims he stole a bike. Then that's what I typed in. Black boy held by cop, says bike stolen. There's a clip right under it. Cops detain 8-year-old for shoplifting a bag of chips. Just the way Aurora police detain black family after mistaking their vehicle as stolen. Just the way of how we're treated differently is enough to say that this country was, if you want the country to go back to the way it was, then I know what you're saying. And the people who you hear saying, get off him, this is what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to you, white people, who were helping this young black boy, going against the other type of white people. It's going to come down to only that. I keep saying, good must fight evil. Every day. We won't have a day off, ever. Because there's too much of it. I'm going to take a break only because, again, the maximum recording is at 60 minutes. This is a long-ass show. But luckily, I'm in a very relaxing state of a chair, a very nice rocking chair with a heat pad behind my back. My neck is giving me some issues, but I'm here. I'm still with you. I hope you'll stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, I am back. We have a few more things to cover. I think we got 3 more stories to cover. So we're almost done, y'all. But I know you want to hear it, so I'm not apologizing at all. One thing that we still are talking about is the war on women. I think I've said in another show, do men hate women? We got a lot of feedback on that. I said that last year on the show. And then we had this whole overturning of Roe versus Wade. So one of the people that I really love in life, who's a conservative, is Anna Navarro. She's seen on the View. But she has, when you say conservative, I think it should be more about your morals, or I don't know. I say I'm a conservative Democrat, or really I'm probably an independent. But I have certain values and things that I believe should be upheld. And this is a CNN commentator challenge on her religion and abortion stance. And I think that I have not heard this in full. I just heard a little of the start of it, and we really need to change. The only way we're going to change is if we stop letting the past dictate what our future is, and that does not mean, you know, for everything. I'm really talking about these laws and these religions that are really holding us back from being united. And the separation of church and state continues to break down. Just even today, I think I read something about how, what was it? Oh gosh, I talked about so many things. But how the Supreme Court is going to attack something else in the new Supreme Court with these current justices. They're ready to attack another thing that stop segregation, stop our country from being divided. And it was about they're ready to attack the political or voting laws, that they're gearing up to attack the voting laws. And I do believe that when Trump runs again, we're going to have a hell of a fight. They've already attacked us on that. They already are making sure that, you know, you don't get water while waiting in lines. They're closing down certain voting areas where there's a lot of people of color who go to vote. They're making them drive very far to go and vote, and attacking people who need wheelchairs and all of these things. So we're going down this rabbit hole. I keep saying it. But here's this story. Let me get into that.
Yes, just yesterday, you can't be but struck by the contrast that just yesterday the Supreme Court ruled down the concealed weapon issue in New York and said it was not a state's right. So apparently, states are allowed to regulate my uterus, but not guns that kill people. So I have a very hard time with the inconsistency and cherry picking of what makes states right.
Look, no one has spoken up for the last 50 years for the unborn child, the sanctity of life. And now people have had the opportunity to speak up for the unborn child, and that's important. Look, I know Anna is a woman of faith. She has a huge heart. She's very passionate. But also I know that the Catholic faith believes in life and supports the sanctity of life. And I find it's just, I don't understand how you can say on one hand you support life, yet you're fine with a woman's decision to choose abortion. And look, there are provisions in place to protect the mother before, during, and after the child.
I am not anybody to tell you what you need to do with your life or with your uterus. And because I have a family with a lot of special needs kids, I have a brother who's 57 and has the mental and motor skills of a 1-year-old. And I know what that means financially, emotionally, physically for a family. And I know not all families can do it. And I have a step-granddaughter who was born with Down syndrome. And you know what? It is very difficult in Florida to get services. It is not as easy as it sounds on paper. And I've got another step-grandson who is very autistic, who has autism, and it is incredible. And their mothers and people who are in that society or in that community will tell you that they consider suicide. Because that's how difficult it is to get help. Because that's how lonely they feel. Because they can't get other jobs. Because they have financial issues. Because the care that they're able to give their other children suffers. And so why can I be Catholic and still think this is a wrong decision? Because I'm American. I'm Catholic inside the church. I'm Catholic when it comes to me. But there's a lot of Americans who are not Catholic, and they're not Christian, and they're not Baptist. And you have no damn right to tell them what they should do with their body. Nobody does.
We need to stop it. We need to stop it. That's why I say religion is going to be the downfall of this country. They say that every 250 years an empire falls. We're only 4 away. We're 4 away. I believe 2 or 4 away from being 250 years from when America was put together as America. We have Donald Trump on his way back. We had the Supreme Court breaking down Roe versus Wade. We have congressmen who want to bring back segregation. We have a Supreme Court who's ready to attack the voting rights of Americans, as if 80 million people did not vote for Joe Biden. Like she said, the separation needs to be clear. The separation of church and state is a real thing, and it's being battled. It's being battled, and religion is being used and weaponized to do so. I don't even know what to do or say. I mean, I use my voice to try to push these messages out. That's the only thing I really can do. You know, is to make people aware. Because most of us are TikToking and dancing and learning a new dance craze rather than writing to our senators, rather than voting at all, because you're not political. We're going through a dark time. And evil, and I'm talking about people like this lady who's like, I don't understand how you could be a Catholic and say that you don't care about life. Anna put it in a way that you should always think about. There are people who are born with conditions that keep them to a 1-year-old capacity. Then you expect a mother who can't even get goddamn formula to raise that child without any mental health issues on her. You don't care until they're born. Once they're born, you don't care. You stop caring. Services being cut nationwide. Nationwide, services are being cut. Education is being cut. Well, we could send $1 billion to the goddamn Ukraine. Now, I don't mean damn them. I just mean to the goddamn. We're fighting battles that don't even matter. You have Macy Gray. I've never heard this yet, and I do want to hear exactly what she's saying so I can make my own judgment. But these inner battles that we have about who's this, who's that, who they want to be, and religion, and bringing religion into it, when we don't even care about science. Religion is a man-made construct. No God wrote the Bible. No God wrote the Quran. Not one. They put us on this earth to decide whether or not we're good or we're evil. And I really believe that when we go, and it's our final time, these are the things that God is going to look at and decide, what did you do while on earth? Did you preach hate? Did you push hate? Did you make people feel like they shouldn't even belong on earth? Is that what you did?
Let's say a human being with boobs.
If I asked you what a woman is, what would you say?
Let's say a human being with boobs. How did you start there?
Yeah, I mean, the dictionary is quite straightforward. It just says a human adult female, right?
No, a lot of people. Yeah, see, that's getting confusing. The whole he, she, they. That's gonna.
And I'm not sure why, really. It's a bit like this whole issue of transgenders in sport. I support all trans rights to fairness and equality.
Me too.
But not where you have people born to obvious physical superior bodies.
Me too.
Transitioning and then thrashing the women.
Yeah, now I will come out and say right here, right now, I don't believe that if you were born a man, that you should compete in a woman's sport. I don't believe it. whoever's listening and gets mad at that, I don't believe it. You are physically more capable than a natural. Do you say naturally born female? I don't know what to say on that. Okay, I'm saying it right now. I don't know how to convey that. But I don't believe that if you were born a man, you should be able to compete against women. And vice versa. Without every woman in that competition signing off and saying, I'm okay with it. And for the ones who say they're not, you shouldn't demonize them because men are stronger than women. So how do you separate that? I don't think there's a way to, except for to call it what it is. Because what we're doing is creating another battle that we really don't even need to be fucking partaking in. We don't need this. We got too much to fucking worry about. And I'm sorry for the double F word there. We have too much to worry about than whether you can go and swim in a pool and compete against cis women. We got gunmen on rooftops. We got our rights being taken away for voting. We got women's rights being attacked on their uterus. This should not be a conversation. Is it a conversation? Sure. But as a trans person, I think you need to really think about that part of it. Is it really what you need? Is it really the battle that you want to start? Do you really need to compete against other women to make yourself feel more like a woman? No, you don't need it. Step aside. Create your own games. Just do it. That's not a battle that needs to be won. It just isn't. You're more stronger than a cis woman. You're faster than a cis woman. Cut it out. Like this man said, he's all about trans rights. I am too. I'm for the rights of anyone to be treated equally. Whether you want to be a man, whether you were born as a man, whether you feel inside you were born as a man or not, whether you were born as a female, or whether or not you feel like you were born a female or not. In the end, your DNA is able to completely do laps around the other. And I don't think it's a fair conversation. And I don't think it's an equal conversation when we talk about equality. I don't think that should be a part of the conversation.
And I will say this, and everybody's going to hate me, but as a woman, just because you go change your parts doesn't make you a woman.
Right.
Sorry.
You feel that?
I know that for a fact. Like, if you want me to call you a her, I will, because that's what you want.
Right.
That doesn't make you a woman just because I call you a her.
No, I think I've said on this show that we are all creatures. I had one of the greatest teachings from someone who was a psychologist, and he taught at the school I was attending about what we are and who we are. You know, we're forced into roles, we're forced into molds, and he just said that we're creatures. We're not man. We're not women. We're creatures. But we've allowed these social constructs to really define who is who, what is what, and whatever. Then they break it down by economic, and then they break it down by race. They do all of it. And all it does is keep us distracted from being loving human beings. It's all it does.
Because people do feel that there's biological sex and then there's gender identity. That you can identify as whatever you like in terms of gender, right? That's the freedom we live in. But actually, you can't change the mechanics of biological sex. They are what they are.
Well, just like women go through just a completely unique experience, and surgery or finding yourself doesn't change that. Being a little girl is a whole epic book, and you can't have that just because you want to be a woman.
I mean, that when people like J.K. Rowling have said this, they get attacked, they get abused. The cancel culture mob comes suddenly. She gets called transphobic and so on. You might get the same for saying it.
But it's the truth.
I'm gonna say that I agree with her. I really do. I'm a person who you've heard, if you listen to this, who fights for everyone. Fights for everyone to be treated equally. But I agree. I agree with her, and I don't think anyone should be attacking her for saying what she's saying. I think trans people need to come to a place where you understand what she is saying. The change of becoming from a girl to a woman, or from a girl to a lady, excuse me. That change, the menstrual cycles that they go through, the pain that they go through with having some of those menstrual cycles. And, even like a lady was talking to me about her flow and how it's very heavy, and she's been going through that. As a trans person, you can't, I guess you can talk about your hormones and what it is to be on those type of drugs that help you get to the state of where you need to be, but you can never, ever understand the pain of bleeding through your vagina since you were a very young girl, and the pain of that. So I understand. And I think if you're trans, you need to understand. A person who is totally against equality, really. Donald Trump, former president Donald Trump, is still getting away from breaking one of the biggest laws, or getting away from creating one of the biggest crimes that we've ever seen on TV. The January 6th Commission is still going on. Don't know how these people get away with it. They're allowed to roam the streets and go and kill people from rooftops and travel 200 miles to cities where black people live and shoot and kill. Here's a little clip of a former White House aide who spoke about what happened inside the White House and what happened inside the Trump circle as he aided over 10,000 people to go and attack our Capitol, calling for the murder of Mike Pence, and they were going to kill Nancy Pelosi, all these kind of things that they said that they were going to do, that we heard on video, that we've seen on video. And Donald Trump was a part of that.
Offerings of testimony in American history, just then, from former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, a top aide to the then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, describing conversations that she was a part of, in which there were warnings of violence before January 6th, describing hearing Donald Trump ordering individuals to stop putting Trump supporters through magnetometers because the weapons they were carrying, he believed, were not going to be used against him. Describing Secret Service agents talking about how Donald Trump, inside the Beast, the secure presidential limo, after the January 6th rally, President Trump ordering them to take him to Capitol Hill, and when they would not do so because President Trump, according to these Secret Service agents who relayed this to Cassidy Hutchinson, lunged at the wheel and then lunged at the throat and clavicle of his Secret Service agent, Robert Engel. It was devastating testimony, a portrait of a president who was completely and utterly out of control and without question knew of the danger of his supporters that were going to the mall. And Jamie Gangel, we've heard a lot of shocking things since Donald Trump came.
I mean, like I said several times, even on this current episode, that they know about these things, right? They absolutely know that there is a large grouping of white supremacists that are trying to take back their country or save America. Like I said several times on this show, they knew that January 6th was going to happen. They knew that people were coming to the Capitol to come and take the election. They knew about it. So this is not shocking to me. You know, the only people who, you know, the Trump supporters are going to be like, oh, it's fake news, it's fake news, it's fake news, you know. They killed police officers that day. They swear they love the police. You know, this is where we are.
2015. This was obscene.
It is worse than we ever imagined. And the notion that he was so, from the notion that he was so obsessed with his crowd size, that he wanted people coming in with weapons to fill it out. But to your point, Jake, the most shocking thing I think we've heard today is that everybody knew that there was a real chance of violence. Trump clearly knew, and he physically got into an altercation with his Secret Service because he wanted to go to the Capitol.
I know everybody wants to talk, but I do want to get to the legalities of this, Laura Coates. Was that just testimony that President Trump committed a crime?
I believe it is. And what if they had that the second impeachment hearing? There was all sorts of notions about whether it was premeditated, whether he had invited the violence to the Capitol, whether he knew about any of these details. The idea that they look at the timeline, 2 to 3 minutes prior to him going on that stage, he was aware that there were weapons in the crowd. People did not want them to be going through the magnometer. That he wanted to know that it was about the crowd size still, and was going to march with them to the Capitol because he knew they were not there for him and the target was the actual people at Congress. This is somebody laying out methodically, state of mind, premeditation.
And blowing away the lies.
This is exactly what Cremo did, right? The man that they're lauding over, who just shot up a bunch of people at July 4th, Highland Park Festival for Independence Day. This is the same thing that Cremo did. He waited, he plotted, and then he set the attack ablaze. A president. How he gets away with this, you know, how the same way how he got away with letting your family members die from COVID. How he lied and said COVID wasn't a big deal. How he lied and acted like he didn't get a notice about it on January 3rd when they put the notice on his desk about COVID. And how he waited months to really put the country into a state where everyone was wearing masks and everyone was protected. This same man then committed one of the largest acts of treason I've ever seen. And the fact that they're changing history books now to remove slavery and things from the history books, this is what we have. These people are dangerous. And you talk about spreading democracy. At this point, you can't call it democracy. You have to call it white supremacy.
Top allies of former President Donald Trump have been
summoned in the latest round of subpoenas in the ongoing criminal investigation into Trump's election interference. Yahoo Finance senior columnist Rick Newman is here to break this all down. Rick.
Yeah, this is important. People probably have gotten sick of trying to follow along with all this litigation, looking into President Trump, former President Trump, and what happened in the 2020 election. But what's happening in Fulton County, Georgia is very important. So there are no charges yet, but this is a grand jury that's looking into the possibility that Trump committed, election fraud in Georgia in 2020. And there's very interesting evidence that he may have done that, most notably that phone call that there's a recording of where Trump asked election officials in Georgia if they could find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have. That was what Trump said on that recording. So the Fulton County DA is looking into whether that may constitute election fraud, and now we've got word of these subpoenas for Rudy Giuliani, Trump's former lawyer, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, and other people who are trying to help Trump overturn the election in 2020. So that does not mean that Giuliani...
We are in danger. We are in danger of this man coming back and taking that house. Once he becomes president again, he will never leave office. They now have the Supreme Court. The last piece of the puzzle will be him going into office again. You better work hard. Y'all better work hard. I'm not going to talk about that anymore because, his face alone just is vile. Screams of supremacy. A bankrupt president, a one-term president, an impeached president. Disgrace. The last story I want to get into is something that I'm going to react to. This video is called How France Still Controls Africa. There's so many hands in the nation of Africa. And I still say this, and I've said it several times, I don't know how Africa is so separated. Well, I do know how, because there's so many hands in Africa. From the British to the Chinese to the French. They've completely kept Africa separate from unifying. Many of you don't know that Africa is many countries put together. It's not just Africa. It's just like, I shouldn't even say it's just like the United States, because the United States, we're all states, but we still have one federal law over us. But Africa itself, there are 54 countries in Africa, according to the United Nations. And Africa has never been a united country. Okay. I just read something else that says Africa consists of 59 countries with a total land area of 30 million kilometers, 12 million square miles. It inhabits 20% of the Earth's surface. Africa is really the biggest country in the world. But there are so many hands involved in it that it's led to where it is today. Poverty. Technology is sparse, depending on the country of Africa. I just want to get to this video. Let's see what they're talking about here. And this is by the Empire was one of the most powerful. Excuse me. This is by the Gravel Institute. So if you go and look this up, How France Still Controls Africa.
At its height, it controlled almost 10% of the world's land area. The French Empire was one of the most powerful in human history. At its height, it controlled almost 10% of the world's land area. From Southeast Asia to West Africa, the country we today associate with baguettes and cinema was a dominant global power. And that was particularly France oversaw territory spanning 17 modern-day nations, from Morocco to the Congo. Under the banner of a civilizing mission, France oversaw brutal occupations that engorged the wealth of the empire and left a terrible legacy for ordinary Africans, marked by slavery, extraction, and murder. And today, France's empire in Africa is still around, in a streamlined, more profitable, and even more exploitative form. Let me explain. In the aftermath of the Second World War, there was a wave of decolonial movements sweeping across Africa and Asia, and the French, humiliated by their defeat and occupation at the hands of the Nazis, were eager to maintain their empire. So they responded to revolts in Algeria, Indochina, and Madagascar with brutal reprisals. Maintaining foreign holdings became increasingly difficult. By 1960, France...
If anything, this sounds like democracy. This is what America pushes as democracy as they go around the world and take over things. It seems like they learned from the French that spreading your flag around was the best way to go.
France was forced to grant independence to almost all its colonies, but something really important happened in Africa. Basically, the leadership of France decided to keep their empire in Western and Central Africa intact in everything but name. The plan was simple. When an African country gained its independence, it was made to sign a so-called cooperation agreement with France, which would outline the nature of their relations moving forward.
AKA, boy, you better do what we say, even though you're free.
In exchange for French foreign aid, African countries were required to give France rights over natural resources.
Now, here's another thing. If you want to eat, then you better do what we say.
Allow France to maintain troops in their territory indefinitely, and, most importantly, keep these countries' currencies linked to France's currency.
Sounds like democracy.
The franc. Instead of having their own currency, they were to use the franc of the Financial Community of Africa, what is now called the CFA franc. The French framed these cooperation agreements as a choice, but they were also clear about the consequences of defiance. When the leader of Guinea, a socialist named Sékou Touré, rejected the cooperation agreement with France and declared that he preferred to be poor in freedom than rich in slavery,
Right.
the French government decided to make an example of him. They cut all foreign aid to Guinea and did everything they could to destabilize the government. They launched a secret campaign to print fake Guinean banknotes and flood the country with them. One French spy later bragged, the operation was a total success. Guinea's economy, already very weak, never fully recovered. The French said that these countries existed within the so-called French community, but the policy would come to be known more widely as France-Afrique. It was about having the former colonies in a position that was maximally advantageous to French interests. Many of the first generation of post-colonial leaders in former French colonies had essentially been installed by the French. They spoke French, had spent time in France, and were well integrated with French elites. Jacques Faucart, a French diplomat, oversaw French relations with Africa for almost 30 years and built a huge web of client relationships with African leaders, using corruption and covert operations to make them loyal subordinates. When local political orders were threatened, the French weren't afraid to protect their hand-picked dictators. Since 1960, France has invaded Africa more than 50 times.
Wow. I never knew that. I bet you never knew that. Like I said, the hands in Africa, the many hands, is why Africa is where it is. You see these give a cent a day kind of bullshit commercials. They're not talking about how these countries have come into Africa and depleted its resources.
Look at the Central African country of Gabon as one example. Gabon is particularly important to France because it has a huge supply of oil and an even bigger supply of uranium. Among the African colonies, Gabon was historically one of the very closest to France. In 1967, a man named Omar Bongo became Gabon's president, soon turning the country into a one-party dictatorship. And Bongo was intimate with France. He'd been appointed after flying to Paris for what was basically a job interview with them.
And a lot of people will come and say, you know, more black people were involved with slavery than, you know, what we think and whatnot, and try to make it seem as if black people were complicit with slavery, or as in this case, you know, here's a black person leading the country. That's why I said earlier, you got to watch out for people who support, black people who support Trump. Because those are the type of people who will get into office and just be a lapdog, be the head, the face, the black face. But really, their strings are being pulled by racism.
With the president. So under Bongo, France and Gabon enjoyed a relationship that benefited both sets of elites. Gabon's oil was pumped by the French state-owned oil company Elf, and its uranium went right into France's arsenal of nuclear weapons. In return, France subsidized Gabon's budget, especially the parts that flowed into the pockets of Omar Bongo and his family. At one point, Bongo was worth over $130 million. Gabon, meanwhile, remained poor and underdeveloped. Under Bongo, it had one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world. Instead of investing in the Gabonese economy, Bongo spent state funds on influencing French politics in his favor, bankrolling the campaigns of central future French presidents. Even today, France keeps troops in the country to support Gabon's current ruler, who happens to be Omar Bongo's son. And somehow, Gabon is actually one of the happier stories. Other countries, like the Central African Republic, are today some of the poorest in the world, in part due to the legacies of French-backed dictators like Jean Bedel Bokassa. But there's another aspect of French influence that's even more important. Probably the most central part of all is the CFA franc, the last colonial currency still in widespread use. In practice, the countries that use the CFA franc have virtually no monetary sovereignty. The value of their currency is linked to the euro. The poorest countries in the world have a currency controlled by the richest countries. And so the imperatives of European countries, fiscal discipline and fighting inflation, end up shaping the very different world of Western and Central Africa. That leads to an overly tight approach to credit, something that's necessary in our current system for an economy to grow. It means that any appreciation in the euro makes exports from these countries less price competitive. So just look at what happened in Senegal. When the euro appreciated against the dollar from 2000 to 2009, the value of the CFA franc got higher. But this made local Senegalese rice more expensive than imported rice from Thailand. So Senegal, which was trying to build its own domestic rice industry, instead saw Thai rice wipe out local rice farmers. So because domestic products are expensive, this makes export-driven growth nearly impossible, which is necessary to lead a country.
I said this about white fragility in slavery in this country, and you'll hear like white people say, well, my daddy, he didn't have this, he worked all his life and blah, 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 my mama. You didn't have your legs and your arms tied behind your back when you started the race. Your daddy, who failed, was a failure, not because of black people, right? Black people had their arms and their legs tied behind their back, and when it was time to race, 3, 2, 1, you sprinted. And then you look back and said, well, why can't that man get up and run a race like me? You say it with no regard to the history. You have a country who can't even export its food in a way to build money and build the country up. And you expect them to rise. You say, look at those mongrels and look at those savages. They can't even get this. They can't even get that. It's the hands that are around the throat of Africa, the hands that are around the throat of Black Americans. It's the same thing every time when it involves Black people. There is some dominant hand and a whole lot of death.
Country out of poverty. That's why most countries that use the CFA franc have growth rates significantly lower than their neighbors. Because the CFA discourages the development of domestic industry, many of these economies have actually been shrinking. The Ivory Coast, the largest CFA franc country, has a real GDP per capita 1/3 lower than it had in 1978. Other CFA franc countries like Cameroon and the Republic of the Congo reached their highest levels of real GDP per capita in the 70s and 80s. And because economic growth is weaker, there's more incentive for local elites in these countries, always tied closely to French multinationals, to take as much money out as possible. Billions of dollars have flooded out of these countries and into shell corporations and foreign bank accounts. Through massive corruption, these African elites have joined the ranks of the global super rich. In 2007, for example, Omar Bongo's daughter-in-law appeared on VH1 to buy an LA mansion for $25 million.
And this is what they do to make it seem like, you know, not all black people are suffering. Not all of Africa is suffering. Look at these billionaires. Look at these millionaires from Africa. Look at these LeBron Jameses and the rappers, you know, of America who have all this bling, you know. This is all they spend their money on. But they do that as a construct to make people believe that there is no suffrage. That if we are suffering, we're doing it because we want to, or we're not capable of, or we don't have the enthusiasm to rise above. All the while having our hands and our legs tied behind our back.
And elites in France get a great deal too. They enjoy cheap access to natural resources and kickbacks from shady business deals. A French billionaire named Vincent Bolloré now owns most of the major ports across West Africa. In France, Bolloré is known as the, quote, king of Africa. So French colonialism in Africa has never really ended. This is why academics use the term neo-colonialism. Even as the branding of empire has faded away, the structures of economic extraction have only grown stronger. This neo-colonialism is actually a much more efficient form of exploitation than the colonialism of the past. The French no longer pretend to care about building functional governments or improving local living standards. It's pure extraction all the time. So these African
AKA take.
countries are not underdeveloped. They're overexploited. France is almost totally reliant on its influence in Africa for its economic power. In the words of Italy's foreign minister, if France didn't have its African colonies, because that's what they should be called, it would be the 15th largest world economy. Instead, it's among the first, exactly because of what it's doing in Africa. And the French know this. François Mitterrand, former president of France, said it himself. Without Africa, he declared, France will have no history in the 21st century. Today, of course, France faces competition from China within Africa, and new challenges to the colonial symbolism of the CFA frame.
They bring up China. I know my stuff now. I don't just get on here and talk. I know my stuff. These people have been invading this country for years. Hundreds and hundreds of years. What they've done to Africa and what they've done to the black people around the world is evident.
There are plans to change the currency's name and abandon the most overt symbols of the colonial past to make it look like the system is more African than French. But France has no intention of actually abandoning a system of extraction that has made it one of the richest nations on earth. The real question is whether the next generation of Africans will allow it to continue.
And that's my thing when, especially black people love to go to Paris and be at the Eiffel Tower. I don't want to go no damn France. I don't want to go to a lot of these countries because of what they've done, because of what they do, not just done, do. They're still living off of Africa. They're still not giving the people of Africa a chance. They're still not giving black people a chance to actually win, to actually be on the same level. They will never do that. All right, so that's the end of that. So like I said, I mean, I spoke most through that, and you have my feelings on it. If you've ever wondered why Africa is the way it is, you have to understand. We as black Americans and Africans who come here, we have the same story. The same exact story. We've been raped, pillaged, and taken advantage of, exploited. The only way it'll stop is if we disappear or stop showing up. Stop giving them all of us. They take our resources, they take our styles, they take our food, they take everything. And act as if we've been at the same level for this race. You can't win a race when racism is the referee. And with that, no further questions. I'll see you next time.